Ladies and gentlemen, I have just interviewed Prashanth Balasubramanian from a company called Striga. He's the CEO, CTO, and many other titles, very smart individual. And what his company does is they build platforms for their clients, for businesses, in order to process payments on a blockchain. I dug a little bit deep into Prashanth in this episode about XRP and XLM and why the heck would you use Bitcoin? And he gave some very interesting answers, and we had a nice little back and forth there about where XRP is, where Ripple is in the scheme of things, and even XRP competitors. I would really love to know, Prashanth, all about, is it Striga or Striga?
Striga.
Striga. Tell us about what you do, what the company does, and then we'll go from there.
All right. So Striga is a one-stop shop for crypto and banking infrastructure in Europe. I am the founder, the CEO, and the CTO. Sounds like a lot of titles, but we are a pretty small company. We operate as a startup, and now we've finally found product market fit, and we're growing pretty fast. But in a nutshell, especially with everything that's been going on in the crypto landscape and the banking landscape, regulations have caught up, and it's not at all even close to easy to build a crypto application that's compliant with the law, be it a non-custodial wallet or an exchange, or let's say a card application, a banking application, a DeFi application. One way or the other, you're going to have to comply, and this means obtaining licenses, writing a lot of code that meets the regulatory requirements, so on and so forth. And Striga has basically done all the heavy lifting and just made it easy for businesses in Europe to use a single set of APIs with transparent pricing and a free sandbox to test everything out. So that's sort of the whole company in a nutshell.
So I can bring my company, for example, say I want to process my payments, and I can use Striga to connect kind of a blockchain environment with the traditional banking system?
Exactly. So that's one possible use case. So if let's say you have an idea to build a payments application that enables other businesses to accept crypto payments on their website, for example, you could build this on Striga, and you do not need to have any licenses or so on and so forth, and you just have a simple software product that other businesses use. So, for example, like BitPay is a common or popular payment processor, like that could be built on Striga, like one example of it.
Interesting. That is very interesting. I've got loads of thoughts in my mind about where that could go, especially within the crypto space. But I am most interested, I think the audience is most interested to know, when you're linking these APIs, could you talk more about that link of APIs? Where are you linking it to? What is it? How is it retrieving tokens? Are you retrieving tokens? Can you shed some light onto how that works?
Yeah, actually, for sure. So that actually starts with like how we've engineered the platform. So on the top level, like it's very similar, and like companies that have built fintech applications in the past have a sort of know-how, and this comes from, let's say, the banking as a service space, which is basically a set of APIs to access banking functions. So in Europe, with banking as a service companies, you make one API call and you have an IBAN, but in the background, what's actually happening is the company is a licensed electronic money institution that's talking to the central bank to create a unique account number and this is routed through to the SEPA scheme and so on and so forth. So we've built our APIs in a very similar way. So you have, let's say, one API to onboard a customer, one API to start their KYC, one API to like create, let's say, a new Bitcoin wallet or a new crypto account, one API to create an IBAN, or one API to like create a Visa card, and so on and so forth. And so you can like mix and match these pieces. And what's actually happening in the background is it's relatively complex, but it's possible to break down. So the whole stack is as follows. So for banking, we work with licensed banks and electronic money institutions in Europe who are actually in charge of holding fiat funds and are licensed to do so. For cryptocurrencies, we use a mix of different things. So Fireblocks is a popular company that basically handles crypto custody, or gives you the service of, or enabling companies to handle custody. So we utilize Fireblocks for holding cryptocurrencies on our own balance sheet, and we are licensed to do so again. And for card issuing, for issuing Visa cards, we work with a payment institution that's licensed by Visa to issue these cards. So we tie all that stuff up and together with this huge component of compliance functions, where we have a compliance team and specific software that does a lot of the checks and monitoring in the background to stay compliant with the law. And all of this is just like, 10 APIs to manage a business.
Is the KYC element done on the blockchain as well?
No, the KYC is handled internally by us. We use a technical service provider that collects ID documents and verifies it. For example, unfortunately, there is not yet a good enough, let's say, a blockchain solution, at least one that I've come across that the regulator is happy with as well.
That the regulators are happy with as well. Okay,
it's a very important part. Yeah.
So let's remove that part. Where would you go for KYC on the blockchain?
That's a good question. I mean, we need a reputable source where ID documents have known to be verified and not tampered with. And again, I've seen a couple of ideas, but I can't recall any names off the top of my head. But none that like I would have thought to fit into a business context.
Yeah. So I heard there was a clip of someone called Bob Way talking at the XRP Las Vegas. He works on a metaverse on the XRP ledger. And when he listed the things that XRP was good at, the first thing he mentioned was identity. I thought that was really interesting because XRP, the first thing you would think of was payments. But he said identity first. So that's why I was kind of like asking about the KYC element, because it can clearly do that well. I would imagine if that guy is he would have to do KYC for his metaverse to make sure. I don't know how it works, honestly, but it seemed very interesting to me that he would mention XRP first for identity.
Yeah, that is fascinating. I haven't thought about XRP specifically for storing identity documents. I mean, it is a ledger which can, of course, be used for identity, but like I would have thought that its stronger suit was payments and especially cross-border settlements. I mean, that's what it's popular for. But I mean, I have experimented quite a lot with the idea of, let's say, identity on the blockchain or storing, basically a method of storing hashes of documents which are known to be verified, which is the same thing that like all the big KYC providers do. But there's a fine balance in like, okay, so I have my own thoughts about like various different technologies and how it could work in a business context. But when you are a regulated entity, I mean, most of these thoughts sort of have to go out of the window, and you need to think of like, okay, if I do this thing, like how is it going to look from a regulator's perspective? And if we lose the license, we lose the business. And so it's like this careful game that you need to balance.
Okay. So when it comes to the payments element, how much are you actually handling physically in terms of like the value transfer? Because I wonder with Striga, when you've got a cross-border payment to facilitate, where is that value actually being transmitted? Is that kind of before you or after you? Like, where does, or like, is that what you handle?
So we handle like 80% of the equation, I would say. Like, so we have a couple of companies that are building cross-border payments applications on Striga. So everything that happens within the European context, for example, so let's say money is coming in from a different country into Europe or the other way around. So everything that happens within this region, like, is handled entirely by Striga. But for example, if you're sending money to the Philippines or India or something, like we don't operate in those regions. So the company usually finds a different partner, like a different type of Striga in those countries. And this is how it's like an analogy to the SWIFT banking system, where, I mean, you have licensed banks doing the same thing, except now you can have like a person who has an idea, like, hey, I want to build this cool cross-border payments app, and like I'm going to use this company to build it in the European side, and like this company to build it in the other place that I want to target.
So where does a blockchain technology for cross-border payments fit in to your process?
Clearing and settlement. Those are the best places where blockchains really, really shine. At the end of the day, the thing that makes cross-border payments slow and expensive are compliance teams. It's really that simple. But with blockchains, like, you're actually reducing a lot of the other friction. So, for example, like you send money on whatever ledger. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a regular on-chain transaction, and that is guaranteed to settle in a given amount of time. And then the clearing part is most probably a human process, which is where the friction comes in. But like, at least now you've reduced like a ton of the time and complexity, and even the clearing part becomes a lot easier when a compliance person just has to look at like, hey, I have a transaction hash and I can see its inputs and outputs, and like, okay, is this something that needs to be flagged, or can we settle it, basically?
So are you actually tapping into any digital assets to settle these payments?
Yes, yes. So natively on the platform, we make it possible for customers to use Bitcoin, USDT, USDC, and one or two other stable coins. So, and these are the assets with which most companies choose to build their cross-border payments application. But the choice of asset or the underlying blockchain is sort of left up to them. So we have some companies that use the Bitcoin blockchain, some that use the Ethereum network, and some that use the Binance network.
So my big question is, why on earth would you use Bitcoin?
That's a good question. It's primarily a liquidity thing at the moment. So especially with Bitcoin, you're guaranteed to be able to move large amounts of money in a compliant way, because this is the thing, again, from a regulator's perspective, it's the most well understood, and there is enough liquidity in every jurisdiction to on or off ramp from the local fiat currency with this.
So I struggle to. I see what you said about there's a regulatory element where transferring money in a safe. I guess, is it a safe way, or I just wonder because there are assets out there, and I won't be around the bush. XRP just seems so much better, and it performs so much better than Bitcoin, Ethereum. It is a liquidity token. It's literally its whole responsibility is to be liquid.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the stumbling block here for using XRP?
So that's like, it's not just XRP. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. I mean, there is XRP, and then there's like 10 other coins that followed like in suit, like trying to do the same thing. And like one of the biggest things that I think XRP solved was first prove that, hey, yeah, you can use cryptocurrencies for cross-border transactions. It's not just this random thing that you hold on to and hope that it goes up in value, or assume that you can use it for payment someday. But this was also at a time when Bitcoin was just inefficient and like extremely slow. I mean, like arguably it is still a bit, it is slow, and there's like various like pros and cons associated with it. So it primarily sort of comes down to, is there enough liquidity? Are there enough service providers out there that support it? And the landscape has changed massively 2 years ago to what it is today. Like 2 years ago, when there weren't regulations, yeah, you could practically use any token under the sun and like send it cross-border effectively and buy and sell it, as long as you had an exchange on both sides. But now from a compliance perspective and from a regulatory perspective, you also need to make sure, like, for example, for us as a licensed entity with the new European laws, every single time we think of like enabling support for whatever coin or token, we need to have like a very detailed write-up that the regulator sort of has to, like, we need to be happy with, and that assume that the regulator is going to be happy with, like, why is this thing on our platform? Like, how are we ensuring that people don't launder money or do bad things with? And with Bitcoin and especially with Bitcoin, the reason it's like it's easier to use in this sense is because everybody knows it, the regulators are familiar with it, everybody understands. Like all the popular, let's say, blockchain monitoring companies also have extensive support for this, and this way it lets us sleep peacefully at night. So it's a big trade-off, I would say, in that sense.
I see. So from what it sounds like is that the amount of time you have in the game in order to get that recognition, that compliance, the understanding from the traditional system and the law to say, okay, you've been here a while, we know enough about you now, then you can do this. So it seems like, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but you've got Bitcoin, which everyone knows everything about, which is why it's the most compliant, I guess, and the one, let's say that's the one being used for these payments, just because that's the one everyone knows and understands. But as time progresses, other entities that have been in this game for a while, I'm going to say Ripple again, and they come into compliance because all of a sudden everyone knows about them, just because there's been enough time and enough relationships built and enough pilots and sandboxes. There's been enough work done to where we understand it, and now we can use it for. And I would imagine they look at their cross-border payments thing and go, okay, well, we've done our due diligence now on Ripple and XRP. It's actually better at cross-border than Bitcoin. So we can have Ripple and XRP do that now, and Bitcoin can do what maybe it was more geared towards. Let's say, I don't know, storing of value. That's debatable, in my opinion. But
no, fair enough.
But that kind of, there's like a shifting line where more and more coins, tokens, and blockchains are brought under that compliance shelter. I would be really interested to know, like, when you say the other tokens that kind of do what XRP does, like who are they?
Okay, that's a good question. I mean, and actually, just like a small like afterthought on the previous point is yes, absolutely. I think that especially in the crypto space, the test of time is sort of undeniable. Things come and things go, and as big as they become, like nothing is too big to fall. Like, we've seen it over and over again, and like Bitcoin is one of those things that just hasn't like fallen. But I agree, it's big and clunky, and there's plenty of room for optimization on that front. And speaking of other coins, I mean, again, like my personal beliefs are like what I follow and do or have nothing to do with the business in that sense. But I think I've seen a couple of different attempts at faster, lower transaction fee type of coins. I think what was this? Nano was one of these. I have no idea what happened to that project. After a while, it had a lot of hype for a while. Then you had I think Cardano, which was another project which I don't like follow too closely, but again, it was like, let's say, an Ethereum competitor that promised to be cheaper and like which you potentially could again use for cross-border payments. But yeah, that's I mean, I don't know much else about or like I don't want to name any other names that I don't know enough about.
Yeah, and I understand. I think I'm just trying to like I guess I'm trying to get my point across that there may be other technologies that can do what XRP can do, but the time required to be in the game to create relationships and partnerships. And I mean, we're going back to 2015 when Ripple was talking with central banks and like starting tests and stuff all the way back then. And I have a consistent argument over time. If there are new technologies that come out that are better than XRP, they still have 10 years to form the relationships, do all of that, and build that kind of time in the game to even compete in the first place. I just think when you look at Bitcoin and Ripple and XRP, we're going to move out of the Bitcoin era, because the Bitcoin era was decentralized, DeFi, separate yourself from the state, cross-border, like you can do payments all by yourself. You're an independent sovereign individual. And that's where the start of blockchain and crypto was, right? Because that was the general mentality. But as we're moving, we're optimizing. And so when it comes to payments, when it comes to cross-border payments, to go even further, you'll just hone in on the better technologies for that thing over time. But you need time in the game. And I think Ripple's right at that mark they're right at that tipping point where regulation is starting to come in for specifically that asset. And talk about regulation. How is the MiCA bill affecting your work?
I think it's fantastic. It's a ton of work that everybody needs to put in, whether you are an unlicensed company or a licensed company. But like you said, I think this is one of those super exciting times where like a lot of the stuff is a lot of the existing companies, whether it's a cross-border payments app or a traditional exchange, is either so we have until December of next year, or all the crypto companies have until this December of next year to figure it out. And the ones that are either going to comply and stay and you're going to be left with the ones that either comply and stay, or the ones that just choose like, okay, hey, this is way too much, and like we're just going to close shop and go away. And you'd be surprised. I think there may be a lot of bigger names vanishing. Like we're seeing like really big names pulling out of like pretty massive markets like Germany and the Netherlands, where like the regulators are already sort of like tightening their nose around these companies. But all in all, I think the net positive effect is fantastic, because it goes a long, long way towards consumer protection. I mean, like there's still billions of people that have no idea what any of the stuff is. And like at the end of the day, even when you have a cross-border payments app, like the underlying user doesn't really care. Like they may not ever care that, hey, this was done using Bitcoin or Ripple or whatever. Like they were just like, okay, I got my money across the world in seconds, right? So, and without worrying about like, hey, I put my money in this app and it's all gone bust, and now what do? I hate crypto. Like, so from that perspective, it's going to do great things for adoption. But again, for the companies in the space, it's a massive, massive uphill battle to gear up and actually build that culture of compliance and understand the law and blend it together with what you have.
Yeah. So law and compliance is the limiting factor, is the bottleneck versus the technological feat of being interoperable.
Exactly that. And I can't estimate how hard it is, because again, like most founders in this space, or most people that build companies, at least let's say that the bigger and more innovative ones, like founders usually have a technical background, like people know how to write code and like build cool applications and that do cool things. But now if you're asked to build a compliance team and like listen to a lawyer explain like what you need to do, like 10 different things to stay compliant, it's really hard to wrap your head around and like build your business in that way. So it's a challenge, is what I'm saying.
Right. So I want to get more into the code and the APIs because I read a patent quite a while ago about how basically it seemed to be a technology on how code would link via APIs to retrieve tokens to transmit value. Is that the system? Like, how does it? I don't come from a code background. I want to know how a token is actually even used in the transfer of value, like how it's pulled out and how it's delivered, and don't be afraid to get technical as well. Like, I think the audience we can piece things together, I think.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there are like very easy answers and very complex answers to the same question. And the beauty of like how we've built it is we've built the APIs or the product in a way where different companies can take all of these different approaches in the way that they best see fit. So for example, you may want to build an app that uses Ripple on the Ripple network to broadcast value across the world. And there may be another person who's building an app that says like, hey, no, I want to use only a stable coin to like send money on the Ethereum network. And you may have another guy that says, hey, no, I want money to first go to Uniswap and get swapped into this coin. And then it goes to like that country and gets off ramp. So we've built the APIs in a way where we have provided companies with the most basic tools that enables people to operate other people's money in a compliant way. And then you build the logic of how you want to transfer value across the world and on which network and on which blockchain. The short answer, the easy answer is pulling tokens and sending it is literally just a regular on-chain blockchain transaction. You can see it on the Block Explorer. It has a transaction hash and it looks like money is going from point A to point B. But the orchestration of that logic is handled entirely by the company that's building the application, which is why most of our companies are folks that have pretty technical guys who have like a very strong opinion on like one method or the other. And it often succeeds as well. Like they have a strong opinion on like, hey, we think we should be like taking this coin and swapping it to this coin on this decentralized exchange by means of this contract call. And this is how you get into this coin, which can then be staked in that place. So we have like, for example, in this case, an API that allows people to make arbitrary contract calls. So which means that you as a user can come in with euros and now you can like interact with Uniswap. But under the hood, there's like a lot of different things happening where like a different payload is created and then we sign it on Fireblocks and then we send it to the decentralized exchange and so on and so forth.
Okay. Are there any links or kind of APIs with Swift at all or anything ISO 20022 compliant? Like how do those things play into the transfer? Because I'd imagine that's on the compliance side of things, right? Or not?
So Swift in particular, well, like this is one of those things that actually have an influence. I mean, I'm personally not a fan of Swift at all. So like the way I started the company was, well, basically it was really hard to move money across the world from India to Switzerland to pay my tuition. And I used Bitcoin to like, I literally just sold Bitcoin and got cash and paid my tuition. And I was like, hey, this is a cool idea. And Swift, and the reason the alternative, which was Swift, was just a stupidly expensive, slow thing that a student couldn't afford. And right now, just fundamentally because of the way Swift is engineered, it's extremely, extremely difficult for crypto companies to get access to. So most banks kind of shy away from this because it presents huge grounds for money laundering and they just don't want to deal with that risk. And by default, like Swift is not an option that we enable on the platform. So anybody that wants to use Swift, we literally just suggest using crypto as an alternative to move money around the world.
Right. But the actual switch from a traditional system, financial system, into a blockchain requires such trust from the Swift side.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like we're not there.
It depends on the risk appetite of the person providing the connection to Swift, which is often a big bank. Because like, and the reason like trust is a key word there, because you can get access to Swift as a crypto company, of course, but it's just like Swift is this ancient network that's just super hard to trace if something goes wrong. So now if a bank trusts a crypto company to use Swift and send money around the world, you could potentially just be sending like billions of dirty money to like a different country. And then it's going to take the bank like years to figure out like what happened and like retrace like all this stuff and be compliant. So it's kind of like, it's like if you trust the company enough, well, yeah, use Swift.
So it sounds like Swift needs to go.
It really does. I think it had its time and place. It solved the problem in a time when payments like was not a thing and like online payments were especially not a thing. But like now we just have much better ways to do it. I mean, I personally can't remember the last time I ever used Swift.
Right. What's also interesting to me now, obviously, because I talk about XRP and Ripple a lot, is how Ripple Net, or the Ripple technology, they ultimately could, with everything being on the blockchain and the way they've kind of standardized their messaging as well to be ISO 20022 compliant. You could have the likes of Ripple just be the next Swift, just replace the Swift. And I think it's that kind of change and that shift that happens that brings a reputable blockchain company who has the central bank partnerships around the world and puts them in a position as a trusted entity to do the job of what was previously there. But that little change, I know it's a large change, but that small change in the whole ecosystem would bring the old financial system into the new one, onto a blockchain. I wonder what do you see that kind of thing happening, whether you think that's Ripple or not?
Yeah, that's a good, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, RippleNet, and it's not actually a small change. This is actually one of those projects I've been following for a while now. And again, they were one of the earliest, it looks super clear and easy on their website. It looks okay, this is so simple. Why didn't anyone else do this? But in reality, it took years and years to make those central bank partnerships and get these banks and convince. It's you have to actually try walking into a bank and explaining to them why they should use this new blockchain technology. It's extremely hard to do. And it's kind of cool that they've actually pulled it off, and it works to some extent. But I think the missing piece, which hopefully comes around in the next couple of years, is it actually reaching the likes of people that need to use it. So if I need to make a business payment or pay someone in XYZ country, can I actually do this in a faster and cheaper way using RippleNet or whatever other Swift alternative there is, which is the unfortunate missing piece. But again, it's not blaming anything. It's an insanely hard problem to solve. And I think at least in that respect, RippleNet has gone pretty far in solving this, and let's see where it goes in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I know. I like that you're being level-headed about it. I don't see any other competitor. And not that the technology can't be competed with. Like I said, I just don't think that it really comes down to 1, 2, or 3 blockchains in the whole entire crypto space that have actually been in the space, talking with banks, creating these projects with the Bank of International Settlements. It just narrows it down so much. And you in one breath, you could say Ethereum is going to be used for everything. You could quite easily say that. You could say Bitcoin as well, if you look at the way things are right now. But when you look at that shifting timeline of time in the space, plus the technology, plus the partnerships, you see Ripple on the Digital Pound Foundation, and they're kind of linked with Quant, with the Digital Pound Foundation, the CBDC pilots, all utilizing Ripple and R3. It's just kind of it to me, it seems clear as day. But I understand where we stand right now. We haven't made that transition over yet. We're still kind of stuck in, we know Bitcoin, we know Ethereum even. It kind of makes me feel sick to say that. But, they understand that right now. We're just bringing Ripple into that elite group, and then disperse into where, like I said, cross-border payments are best done by XRP. Cross-border payments person to person would be best done by XLM. They'll start making those decisions from a compliance and regulatory standpoint. And that just means, these are the technologies going to be used. And I think, like you said, lots of these cryptocurrencies can be used to send value. I could send you Dogecoin, and you've got value. Yep. I could send you any cryptocurrency, and you've got value already. But the important part is that it's recognized for what it's supposed to be doing by the large players, and I think that's where, from an investor standpoint, the money's made for the retail investor.
Absolutely.
So give it to me straight. What are your top 5 cryptocurrencies and why?
That's a really hard question to answer. Again, my job has been, for my entire adult life has been to build technology. Speculating on digital assets is not my strong suit, or neither is it something I'm a professional in.
Okay, I can rephrase the question so it's not like that. I can say, which technologies are most exciting for you to work with?
Okay, that's a good question. I mean, again, I am biased based on like what I have been. So I started off like writing code using Bitcoin script and then the Lightning Network came about. This was pretty cool to check out. I used some of this stuff, and then when Ethereum became more popular and like Solidity was a thing, I dabbled in that a little bit, but that wasn't as much fun. But I think especially like I think the really hard stuff is what gets me excited, but again, it's not necessarily true for other programmers. So like Bitcoin script is inherently flawed. It's like it's broken. I mean, there's many things you can't do with it for obvious reasons, but it's like I find it fun to work with, but by no means does that mean like it's a great investment or like it's like it's the the world or whatever. But it's just I'm just being like practical and rational about it. Like this as a programmer, I enjoy working with Bitcoin related stuff. I've dabbled in a couple of other things, but that's the thing that is most enjoyable, I would say.
Yeah, it's like I'm going to say this to annoy all the Bitcoin people, but it's like Bitcoin's got so many flaws. It's kind of fun to try and fix it. And I guess I would find that fun too if I knew code. There's nothing to fix on a perfect blockchain. So.
It's like challenges are always a fun thing to solve. Like it's the same with which is why like we leave the actual building of the cross-border payments application and the thing that end users use to the companies. Like I mean, we give you the tools. Hey, take these tools and like fix all the things that are broken with payments in the world.
Yeah, I've got questions about Striga, which I may have to ask you like off the camera. It'll be more related to like my business functions and payments from that capacity. Mm-hmm. I found it interesting that essentially I could come with a basically an idea that I want to create X product or X offering, and I want the payments from all around the world to be made in a certain cryptocurrency on a certain blockchain, and you would be able to kind of piece that all together with logic that I've kind of put together.
Yeah, the logic part will be left to you, but yes, you could technically depend on what the X is and like what the X is and like what these things do. But yes, in a nutshell.
So, and I completely understand with what you said before about how people overall don't care how the value gets sent to them as long as it gets to them. And you want it to be quick. That's just an efficiency thing. You want it to be quick. You want it to be cheap. But the general person involved with payments, they just want to see the thing in their the amount in their bank, right? So that's really all they care about. But from a business perspective, if you do want it to be more efficient, you do want it to be cheaper, you do want it to have wider reach cross border. It seems like you have to know about XRP in order to favor it, because it seems like people just breeze over the fact that it's better. Do you get that? Do you get that feeling? Like when you talk with people wanting to create applications?
Absolutely. So again, like in this industry, you meet a lot of different people with a lot of different strong opinions. And the most important ones, like the really serious guys, like you said, like from a business perspective, you're looking at margins. You're trying to build a business. A business is about making profit, keeping the lights on, paying your employees, etc. And if your business is cross-border payments, and you come with an idea saying like, hey, like we're going to make margins on these kind of transfers, and like this is the kind of application that we're building, and XRP is the ledger that we choose to use because it's like, I mean, we make kind of 80% better than, like we're 80% more profitable than Swift just because we use this ledger. Then yes, it makes complete sense. But at the same time, we also see companies that come in and say like we want to do the same with USDT on Ethereum, and like, okay, my question is like, okay, like you're not really like, well, but that's your business. It's not my job to tell you what to do. But
you're kind of taking direction rather than advising on what would be best for a certain situation. You're just doing what you're paid to do.
We give you the tools. Again, like we're giving you access to compliant custody, liquidity on and off ramp, like build a cool user experience, issue your users cards, etc. Like you can build a cool app, but then the actual generating of the profit, etc., is your business logic, and like it's entirely up to you to build that. Like, I mean, it's kind of like Stripe, or like we give you the most fundamental tools, and these tools are the thing that you use to create what you want.
Yeah, I have personally looked for solutions to make payments using the XRP ledger in some capacity, because I talk about blockchain so much, yet my company isn't based on the blockchain, and I would really like it to be, or at least incorporate blockchain in some capacity. So from what I'm hearing, if you're not a central bank and you're not a massive financial institution, you're just a business, an app or a company like Striga could kind of help you move your company onto a blockchain, especially for cross-border payments. Is that what I'm hearing?
You couldn't move your company onto the blockchain, but your company could build a blockchain-based application that does cool things.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean more like utilizing blockchain rather than using the traditional system as like the only thing. Yeah, it's really interesting. So I feel like a lot of the responsibility for the adoption of XRP and Ripple is actually the decision to use it.
Exactly. I mean, the dream is eventually to enable the bigger financial institutions and the banks to, like, the guys who don't, like, which billions of people use, like, to enable them to deliver value to end users using the latest and greatest to move money across the world. Like, and like, we're starting small today. I mean, like, here's where it's really hard to do. Like I said, it takes years and years. Like, here's where we are today. We're growing fast, and, like, hopefully in 5 years we're at that stage where, like, JP Morgan is using Striga in the background to move money across whatever ledger. I mean, be it XRP, Bitcoin, Lightning, rollups, whatever. Like, I mean, who knows what's going to happen in 5 years? So
yeah, that's what I like to hear. I can already see the clips already. JP Morgan using XRP. But
that's huge. But
it's all up to the decision of, like, JP Morgan, Bank of America, Citibank. If they and I hope that for you that they use Striga, to facilitate those things easier, because less of a technical headache. And they typically do use those outside entities to do those things, because when they build the technology themselves, it's pretty lame most of the time. But yeah, I wish you all the best. I hope that if you do see an uptick in people requesting the XRP ledger to be used for any of your offerings, then you'll let me know, because that's super interesting to know, like, the adoption curve and where we stand on those things. But thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you. Is there anywhere that people can find you on Twitter, online, if they want to know more for their own businesses?
Yeah, it's Striga.com is the best place. hello@striga.com is the email, and Striga HQ is the Twitter. But the website has the most information.
Okay, perfect. I'll send people over there. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lewis.